In this lesson, we're going to finish up our painted wood material. Alright, so we learned how to use the lerp node, and this is a very powerful node. And in fact, it's on a keyboard shortcut. If you hold down L on the keyboard and then left click, that'll bring in a lerp. Let's go ahead and talk about mixing two normal maps together. So let's bring in our second normal map, and it's created from this cracked paint texture. So I've got this normal map. I'm just going to simply left click on it and then hold down T and then left click and bring that texture sample in, and there we have two normal maps. Now whenever you're mixing normal maps, we have to think about the colors that are involved. We have R, G, and B. And really the blue value is just giving us the surface. Okay, that's not affecting anything. Okay, it's kind of the neutral point, if you will. So right now, if we were to think of our surface in a normal map sense, the flat surface itself is blue, whereas the cracks, the little indentions, are red and green. And so what we want to do is we want to just separate out the red and green values, and we want to add those to this map here. And so a way that we can separate out different channels is using a component mask. So we can find a component mask by right-clicking and simply typing in our search, and we could start up with component, and you'll see it under here under vector ops. Go ahead and left-click on your component mask, and all we have to do is plug in the RGB channel into this mask. Now with the mask selected, you'll see that you have the ability to change what is actually being masked out. And so what we want to show is the red and green values only. If it helps to see exactly what this is doing, simply left click on this arrow and you'll see the final output at this node. So here we just have the red and green. We're not worried about the blue. So now what we want to do is we want to add that to this. So let's go ahead and try that now. I'm going to hold down A on the keyboard and then left click, and that will give me an add node. Let's plug in this mask into B. Let's plug this into A, and then we'll take the output of our add and we're going to plug that into the input of our normal. Now you'll see that we get a warning here, and what it's saying is it says arithmetic between types float 3 and float 2 are undefined. What does that mean exactly? Well, this normal map right here has a float 3 value. It has a red, green, and blue value, whereas this one right here just has the red and green. Now you might be asking, well, why don't we just go ahead and add this to this? Okay, just taking the red, green, and blue and plugging that into the add. That'll work. However, it's not going to give us the exact result that we want. We're going to get a very mixed up look, and we don't want that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get around that by adding the blue value and setting it to 0. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we'll do that. We'll use an append vector, or excuse me, an append node to do that. So let's go ahead and right click, and let's go to our search, and we're going to type in append, and this will be under your math or vector ops, and you'll find append vector. What this will do is it will take the input here, so it's going to be red and green, and then we're going to add in whatever we want to the end of that. And so in this case, we want to add in just a constant of 0. So I'm going to take this constant right here. I'm going to hold down Control and W. Let's pull this down just like this, and let's pull that right up here. Okay. So now what we can do is we can take this and plug that into B, and our warning will disappear. Now look at what's happening here. We're getting that normal map to separate out the paint and the wood, and so now we're getting that bumpy surface that we desire. Now the problem that we have now is that we're getting this shininess on our wood, and we're also getting it on the paint, and I don't want that. I want to separate that out. And so to separate that, we'll have to use our mask here as our roughness. So let's simply take this value off. Let's hit delete, and let's take the RGB channel and let's plug that into roughness, and look at what happens. Now you'll see that we are getting a separation between specularity, but it's in the wrong direction. Our wood is getting all of that specular where the paint is not, and I want that to be the other way around. A quick way to flip that is to use a 1 minus node. A 1 minus node is simply going to take the input and flip it in reverse. So the whites will become black and the blacks will become white. So let's go ahead and right click. Let's do a search for 1 minus, and you'll find it in here under the math category. Bring that in, and we'll just simply plug in our texture that we want to flip, and we'll put that to the roughness output, and there we go. So now we've got our paint, and the wood is staying flat. Okay, so there's not much light coming off of that. So that's looking pretty good. Now the only other thing that I would want to change about this is the fact that my paint is a little too large. I want to go ahead and I want to tile that. So to tile a specific part of your material, to tile a texture in that, is to use a text coordinate. So let's go ahead and right click, and let me go to coordinates, and at the bottom you'll find texture coordinate. Go ahead and take this, and we're going to plug that into this map, our mask, and then we're also going to plug that into the normal map, okay, as well. This is controlling the paint, okay, these two textures. So from here we can select the text coord node, and we can tell it how many times we want it to tile. So in this case I'm going to tile it by 2, and we'll do that in both directions, and there we go. So we've got a lot of this cracked paint on our wood, and that's looking pretty good. I want to take a look at this on a model. So let's go to our content browser and go to props. Let's select this static mesh material preview mesh, and then go back to your content, or your material editor, and left click right here on your preview, and that's going to set that to the mesh that you have selected in your content browser. Looking at this, if we zoom in on it, that looks pretty good. We've got a lot of this paint on top of that, and then we have our wood that's staying very flat, but our paint is shimmering. Okay, and that's pretty good. I like that. Okay, not too bad. Now what I want to do is I want to show you how we can take what we've built so far and make it customizable for a designer inside of our editor. So we'll go ahead and we'll talk about parameters in the next lesson.